He told me about it yesterday, feeling guilty. The details are that on the nights of his bachelor celebration, which coincided with yours, he was very inebriated. He drank too much and doesn't drink often. The following morning, he claimed that everything he remembered had stopped after that. I didn't give it much thought. In retrospect, I noticed how strange he was acting, which at the time I took to be wedding jitters. He has since admitted to me that he did recall that night when he returned home and my mom, who was staying with us for the wedding that week, made love to him. He eventually hooked up with her in her bed after complying with it to that extent. Indeed, he spent the entire night unconscious on her bed. That same night, I had my bachelor party, and I got home at 3 a.m. to find him not lying in our bed. When I texted him, I thought he had crashed with a buddy because he had mentioned he might do so if things went out of control. However, he was actually in the room next door with my mother. He crept out the following morning while I was still asleep, then opened a door and pretended to be someone who had just returned home from his friend's house, having slept off his inebriation. He told me that lie and got into bed with me. Not only that, but the very following day, after spending just a few hours with my mother before our marriage, he made the first move towards intimacy. Everything is a damn shame. This is just unbelievable. Not as bad as it used to be, but my mother has a history of making inappropriate attempts at flirting with the males I've dated. My spouse was aware of this. He told me that he would never in a million years find her attractive as we laughed about it. She spent many minutes pretending not to know what I was talking about, then denied everything and said he was making it up, then said she had woken up to my husband forcing himself on her. I contacted her last night, and she told me. Husband told me everything. There are no adequate words to express my disdain at the blatant stupidity of what she is capable of. Eventually, I just hung up. I was crying all the time. She wouldn't even acknowledge the reality, much less accept accountability or offer an apology. My mother thinks I'm not even worthy of basic honesty. I am not even worthy of a half-baked "I'm sorry" from her, the one who is meant to love you unconditionally. Does she also believe that I am a moron? If you truly believe someone would fall for your bullshit, then why do you keep lying to them when they know you're lying? I can't cry at all today. Everything seems surreal. I feel like I may have dreamed this, but I'm absolutely lost. The two most significant individuals in my life have parted ways with me because they felt a fast hookup was more important than me. I hope that those 10 minutes were the best of their life. Of course, it's possible that my spouse didn't intend to sleep with her when he returned home that evening. Most likely he didn't, and his poor decision-making was the result of excessive drinking. That doesn't alter the reality that he and my mother carried it out. It is not appropriate for anyone to say that about their spouse. Is that typical? I could never stay in a marriage where my partner literally hit my mother 2 nights before our wedding. That's just not possible to recover from, is it? No, I won't be able to go on or forgive it. I am utterly disgusted that for the past 2 years, they have been attending family gatherings together and appearing quite normal, all the while treating me like an ignorant, foolish fool. I could be forgetting a lot more, but perhaps that's not important. I just finished. My life is over, and I don't even know where I'll be in a week or a year. We had decided to spend the rest of our lives together. It's gone now, just like that. Nothing at all. Now what can I do? How can I possibly explain our divorce to my family members who are still living? I feel so incredibly ashamed. Before you read the update, here is the best suggestion. Alright, so why would your mother approve of her daughter marrying a criminal if she were to be truthful about him pressuring her into marriage? My mind cannot process how horrible it is all. You are more deserving than the two of them. They should both be ashamed, especially your mother, so don't feel bad about it. Either the spouse or the mother is a criminal. Given all the information given, it appears that the mother is. But naturally, a lot of people believe he's a slime who cheats. She capitalized on his inebriation. It's true that Mom has a history of making inappropriate comments and flirting with OP's previous boyfriends. Without a doubt, the mother pushed herself on him. But he decided not to tell his wife everything as soon as he realized it had happened. For 2 years, he continued the deception by omission. He is also not without fault. Disclose the truth to all, destroy them. Before the mother pulls a BS and attempts to portray herself as the victim, OP needs to take action. In order to prevent her family from trying to push her to get back in touch, OP needs to sever all ties with her horrible mother and tell them the real truth. I apologize so much, OP. To begin with, you are under no need to explain to the family if you so want. On the other hand, you could just tell the truth, because if your mother has chosen to lie and accuse her husband of forcing her when she knows that is not the truth, mainly because she has done that in the past, she could very well lie about why you stopped talking to her, casting you in a negative light. You could say something like, "It's not working out, and we have decided to separate and are not comfortable discussing more." It leads me to my next point. I believe you ought to break up with your mother, at least for the time being. I am aware that the truth is incredibly horrible, but this should be caution to others, particularly if the original poster has more siblings. The mother or the soon-to-be ex-husband are the criminals. This could happen to someone else again if it isn't addressed. This brings us to the update. I want to answer everything you people stated on my initial post in detail before I share my actual updates, which will be brief. I have read each and every comment. Well, if you're merely interested in the latest information, go to the bottom. The majority of you brought up how it sounded like she had assaulted my husband because he was too inebriated to give his consent. After reading everything, I talked to him again and asked him whether he thought she had taken advantage of his inebriation. A protracted silence ensued. He sighed, gave me this terrible, guilt-ridden expression, and then essentially stated, "No," adding that it would be simple to accept the explanation I was giving him, but that I should be given the whole truth. He continued by telling me that they had been sexting for a few months prior to that evening. When he originally confessed, he hadn't told me this. He continued to tell me more, saying that he didn't want to upset me by disclosing all the background information because the real cheating was the main problem. I suppose it was only out of a residual feeling of honor that he gave them this chance. He said that tricking me into believing it was done without permission would make him even more of a coward. He's not lying as much as he might, I suppose. Not sure how to react to that. In any case, they had been dating for a few months before to the wedding, including exchanging naked photos. I knew they occasionally texted now. Their connection has always been cordial. I had never had any strange suspicions. He had said he would never think of her that way, as I had mentioned in the first post. I had faith in him. He is unable to articulate the reason behind their extinguishment other than the excitement he had from breaking the law. Implications were raised about wanting to do one-night events in real life, should the chance even present itself. Revolting. So let's fast forward to the night of our bachelor/bachelorette parties, when he was out and she was texting him. That's right, what I claimed in my first post, that he probably didn't come home planning to sleep with her, was incorrect. Indeed, he did. It was all set up when he told me he would spend the night with his friend if he got too inebriated. He knew I was going to be at a show till late. He was smart enough to prepare to leave his party early, go home, spend the night with my mother, and even offer me a plausible reason for why he might not have been home when he returned at 3 in the morning. So that he could be with her that one night. For him, the entire sensation of dozing off following the deed and waking up beside each other was simply that essential. He restated that he had known exactly what he was doing at all times. The next morning, when he claimed not to remember anything that had happened, he was not as inebriated as he'd made it seem. That, I believe, led some readers of my initial post to believe he was incapable of doing anything. I believed it was evident from his first confession that he had acknowledged that it was a pretense he had put on for me to hide his infidelity. He went on to say the following morning that he had remembered everything. Thus, to be clear once more, even though he did get intoxicated, he never went completely insane or lost all control over his body or decisions. He has no idea if she was comparatively sober or intoxicated as well. He doesn't know how much he said, but she had mentioned drinking when he was out at his party. He hadn't texted her since that night, other than to discuss visit logistics. He also texted her the day after, telling her that she would lose me if I found out, and that it would never happen again. She must make sure she never lets it go. She concurred. Since then, he says, everything between them has been typical of a mother-in-law relationship. Do I think that to be true? Not important. After lying for 2 years, he lied again in his first confession by leaving out the details of the affair's month-long prelude. I was spending that time arranging my wedding with my mother, which helped us bond. She even took me shopping for dresses. It's incredibly bizarre. It would be inappropriate of me to ignore his integrity in this regard. He assured me that he could easily run with it to hold on to me. I offered to stay with him if that was the case. However, he has already deceived me. If he made a false claim about something so severe instead of accepting responsibility, he would never be able to live with himself. That's the only thing about him that I find admirable. Nothing, ask for my mother. She has been silent since this past weekend. All right with me. I want to never see her again, or hear from her. She appears to have passed away. My mother is no longer with me. A few of you inquire about my dad. He passed away in 2010 due to health problems, and my mother had a string of relationships with men but no lasting ones when I was a teenager. Thus, neither my dad nor my dad have a father. Like you, I'm an only child. I simply didn't have the energy to tell them about any of my acquaintances or other family members. Last but not least, because I hadn't answered any of the comments, some individuals assumed my post was fictitious. That's because, immediately after posting it, I passed out from exhaustion. It was locked when I woke up, so I was unable to respond. The real news is that I've contacted an attorney and am currently going through with a divorce. He's been banished from the house by me, and I believe he's currently staying with his parents. There's no way to stay married after this catastrophe, therefore I'm not looking forward to a court battle at all. He still doesn't understand why he did it. Based on his previous statements that he felt he had missed out on his youth and that he wished he had more love relationships before me, I have my own doubts. Perhaps that indicated to me that it wasn't sufficient for him. I should have paid attention, but I allowed him and a few others to convince me that I had to be sincere or he wouldn't be with me, and that all men have similar regrets and give them up for the right women. That was obviously not me. You also had trouble seeing too many explicit films. His fave genre is stepmom, at times. I've always thought of it as just a stupid point. Whatever. I'm definitely colorblind to red flags, so I won't be dating for a very long time. Whoa, that's very screwed up. I'm sorry you have to handle everything. It's not right. He still doesn't understand why he did it. It is untrue. He had meticulous planning for it. Even if he won't acknowledge it, he knows why he did it. Furthermore, I highly doubt that he made this admission out of guilt. The simplest method to fulfill his desire to leave the marriage was for him to do it. It wouldn't surprise me if he was having fun, maybe even getting back together with someone. Heck, if he is lying to his mother about cutting off, I wouldn't be shocked. Some buddies of mine went all out for their bachelor party. Ordinary insane stuff like blow, strippers, and if part of it leaked, it may cause their marriage to dissolve decades later. Nobody has ever spoken before. It took place. It won't take place once more. Silence is the code. While I don't blame anyone for thinking that kind of thing is dumb and horrible, I do think it's worse to confess to something like that years into a marriage in order to ease your own guilt. Accept the shame and carry on with the guilt. If you truly want to treat your mate well, then change for the best. This guilt trip is really a pretext for bail. It would be inappropriate to ignore his integrity in this regard. He assured me that he could easily run with it to hold on to me. I offered to stay with him if that was the case. However, it has already deceived me. If he made a false claim about something so severe instead of accepting responsibility, he would never be able to live with himself. That's the only thing about him that I find admirable. Moreover, OP, don't fall for this. He's ready to go. He's not playing this angle because of this. He would easily put a mother under the bus if you had caught him, and he had wanted to stay. He's only using this to maintain some control over you and give the impression that he's not as horrible as he seems. He really is that awful. Take him to the dry cleaners and end the marriage amicably. Oh God, please don't try to normalize being able to do things like that while keeping it a secret and knowing it would shatter the relationship if it came to light. They shouldn't be doing it if they don't want their partners to know. And have contacted an attorney in order to proceed with the divorce. He's been expelled from the house by me. All right. Absolutely, certainly, yeah? Remove these people from your life as if they were malignant growths, and stop communicating with them permanently. Invest in you, my God. Kindly seek therapy to address the damage this horrific betrayal has caused you. She's no mother, and he's a piece of assholery. She's a dirty girl. Nothing more by parents. To do this to your own daughter is unbelievable. I hope you find strength and healing. OP, I'm grateful. Before the end of the week, I want to make sure I find a therapist. Fantastic. A skilled therapist with knowledge of trauma healing can be of great assistance. I really apologize for you. You're choosing what to do. I'm sending you a big hug and plenty of strength. I'm grateful. Thank you for the confirmation. It's quite challenging. In the divorce process, don't be afraid to use the "I'll tell everyone what you did" tactic to your benefit. How repulsive. This brings us to the final tale. My husband's family seems to believe that I intentionally scare people. Last week, my husband, a 30-year-old man, and I, a 24-year-old woman, lost our baby. Now I have to worry that my husband's family believes I did it on purpose. A brief history. I'm not from here, but I've been in the US for 5 years. Foreign accent and different skin tone. I'm not what they expected in a daughter or sister-in-law, which my mother and sister previously said in front of me. Things improved a little when hubby urged them to stop, but his sister continues to occasionally make strange remarks. She had the audacity to tell us, in front of everyone, that my miscarriage is not that big of a problem since I did it on purpose and that it's not like I wanted a baby anyway, either of which is true, after inviting us over to her apartment. One day, in our first year of marriage, I told her that I didn't think we should rush into getting pregnant, and she interpreted it as a sign that she didn't want children. And now, more than a year later, when my husband tried to urge her to stop, she shoved that in my face. However, his mother intervened and stated, if his sister was correct, then I most likely did it on purpose. As in what? I'm glad my husband grabbed me and we fled after he spoke up for me and realized his mom was also in on it. He now requests that I allow them to visit and apologize, but I don't want to see them ever again. I am aware that's not possible, though. How then do I look at them, host them in my house, and express my true feelings to them without wanting to hurl something in their faces? Without a doubt, the mother-in-law and sister-in-law are awful individuals. To keep their cool with your husband, they will apologize verbally rather than from the bottom of their hearts. From now on, keep these people at a distance. I hope to never see them once more. Sadly, there is family involved, and I am aware that he just wants us to get along or behave civilly. But all this time, I'd been polite. I can't recall ever doing anything to earn this. Yes, you may maintain your distance from them while still being polite, giving them no more chance to hurt you with hurtful remarks. I'm sorry you lost your pregnancy. And to believe that women wrote the words. When his sister urged us to come over and have SE to help us forget about the event, they sounded incredibly sad for us. Like a fool, I fell for it. I was so foolish to expect that they could sympathize with me and support me during my grief. Simply let him know that you'll let him know when you're ready to see them and hear an apology. Indeed, I have. He is adamant that since we are a family, we ought to address this as quickly as possible. However, it's very clear that they don't consider me a member of their family.